Hi everyone. Yesterday I saw a great video from Magenta Pixie. It was a transmission from the Nine, and one of the things that she talked about was about differences in technology and kind of this transition from an artificial technology to an organic technology. And since I've watched that video, I've actually had quite a few insights and a different way of looking at this that I thought others might be interested in. So before I kind of get into the technology part, I just wanted to cover something that I see as basic to this, which is that if we look at how we create our reality, it's basically that our intention plus our frequency equals what becomes form or matter around us. So technology is part of the 3D form and matter around us, and so our intention into those technologies and then our frequency is what creates them. So I'm just going to rub this off, and first of all, let's just have a look at what I'm just going to call 6 basic human intentions: that of connection, knowledge, abundance, health, joy, and creation, and how those intentions could be taken with a lower frequency to create these artificial technologies at the moment that we have. So if we take the first thing that I think really significantly affects the human collective consciousness frequency at the moment, it's the idea of separation. It's the idea that there's something outside of us that we need. And if we have a look at all of these artificial technologies, we'll see that they are indeed created from that whole vibration of separation. So let's have a look as an example of connection. If you take the human innate desire for connection and you turn that into something outside of yourself, well, what does that become? It becomes a technology like 5G. So basically, it's a technology of communication and connection around the whole globe that ties all humans together. So at the end of the day, we want that connection, but the technology is the way that it's being manifest because of our current vibration. So let's take something like knowledge. If knowledge is outside us, what technologies and systems does that create? Well, it creates things like the internet. So obviously, the internet is now the place where you can go to for all knowledge, but it's outside of ourselves. We may also put into this category here our education system. Once again, our education system is us going and getting our knowledge from somebody else, some other expert or guru. Abundance is an interesting one. So the whole theory behind abundance is that we should each have everything that we need in our daily lives to survive and thrive. So what does that look like as a technology when it's put outside of us, that somebody else has to give to us? It becomes something like money. It becomes agriculture. You know, where instead of getting our food just from nature around us, it's that somebody has to go out and create this food for us to eat, and, you know, even use technologies like GMO to enhance our agriculture so that, you know, there's more of it or better or something. But all of this is taking it outside of us and our empowerment to be able to create these ourselves. So then let's take something like health. When we say that there's health and it's created as a technology outside us, well, it's obviously the medical system, in that there's an expert or a guru who can fix us or heal us. And, you know, when we talk about things like vaccines or pharmaceuticals, those are things that we take outside of us to heal us, apparently. So that's health. Now let's take something as simple as joy. What does joy look like when it comes from something outside of us? Well, you know, here we might put a lot of different things. We might put addictions, you know, we could put drugs, gambling, materialism. I mean, the list here goes on and on at these external things that supposedly provide us with joy. And then the final thing that I've put down here is like a natural human intention is creation, the ability to create something. I think that's part of our innate intelligence, is to want to create. Well, if we say that the creator is outside of us and we know that it's our mind that actually creates, then that means that something else is controlling our mind. So if it's outside of us, we might say there's some type of mind control going on. So there's some type of external thing that's giving us the information in order to create our lives. So we might put in here things like the media or politics, systems that, are going to give us this information to create our lives. So it's really interesting because here we have all of these human intentions turned into an artificial technology outside of ourselves. So we basically disempowered ourselves and given away our power to somebody else to create these things for us. But the other really interesting thing here is if you have a look at what contributes to the frequency behind these technologies is what I'm going to call the frequency of violence. Now, that may sound a little extreme, but if you just think about the stuff that goes on in your head most of the time, it can be classified generally as violence. And I'm calling it something extreme because it really is so subtle and it's become so normalized. I'm not even sure we're aware of it. So as an example, in our day-to-day life, we're always judging, we're always criticizing. That thing's bad, that thing's wrong, that person did something bad, I'm a victim, that shouldn't be that way, that person's evil, whatever it is. That's constant violence against another living entity. And then an even more subtle form of this, I think, is the thoughts that we have that are violent against ourselves. So, there's something wrong with me. I'm a bad person. I'm inadequate. I'm doing something wrong. There's something wrong with me. Whatever it is, those thoughts are actually violence towards ourselves. And I think the thing that we don't realize is that when there's a frequency of violence, that what it actually creates in the world of matter and form around us is some type of violence or harm. So when you look at these technologies, I think you'll agree that most of these have been linked with some type of harm. There's a lot of sort of conspiracy theories about some of the harm that can be caused by these technologies, and obviously we see the harm behind things like addictions and the harm that things like money can cause, and even the harm from our medical system is, kind of tells us what's going on here. So, you put together these human intentions and then you give it the frequency of separation and disempowerment and violence or harm, and this is what you end up with. It's a perfect match for our collective frequency. Perfect. I mean, it couldn't have been engineered any better. So the interesting thing about this though too is that if you have a look at how this becomes problematic, it loops in on itself, because if we don't think that we create our reality, and we do, and we've handed over our power to these technologies to create it for us, and really they're just creating our intentions based on our lower frequency, then it just gets worse and worse, and it spirals in and gets more harmful and more negative, and it's really difficult to work out how to get out of it. And I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with at the moment, is they see all this stuff and they go, how on earth are we going to get out of this? Well, the thing is we already have the intention. So all we have to do is change on focusing our frequency. So how can we take back our power? And instead of thinking about separation, think in terms of unity. And how can we think about switching our thoughts of violence against others and ourselves back to being about love and compassion and forgiveness and gratitude? All those things that, have always been part of the spiritual path. So what I wanted to finish with was kind of say, when we're able to do that collectively and we shift our frequency, what might an organic new human technology look like? What can this morph into? So let's take something like, the desire to connect, and we put a higher frequency behind that. Instead of having something like 5G, what we end up with is, something like telepathy, where we are all connected and we can all communicate with each other. That's obviously much more unifying for humans. So then knowledge, if we're saying we're not going to external things to get knowledge, what would that mean? Well, it would mean connecting to all the information in the universe ourselves, you know, whether it's the Akashic records or, you know, using our third eye, or whether it's connecting to source. The interesting thing about this is, if you think about it, you know, think about the internet. Every piece of information is on this little device that you carry with you. It doesn't matter where you are, the information is in the ether around us. So instead of us needing the technology of a phone to access that energy that's everywhere, we're basically using ourselves as a technology just to be able to go directly to the source and get whatever we need to know. So let's look at something like abundance. So instead of having to go to all these you know, outside sources for what we need, like food, you know, we know that nature will provide everything that we need, and we trust in that. And instead of having to have, you know, this debt-based money that's so harmful to so many, instead, you know, we end up with a principle of give and receive. I don't know what that looks like, but that is it's a much nicer technology. Okay, so let's look at health. Well, when we take back our own empowerment about our physical body and everything else, then basically health becomes we can heal ourselves. And we have a deep trust in our body that it knows exactly what to do. So joy, what does joy look like? Well, instead of having technologies around us where we have to go and have all these things to make us happy, really we realize that the experience of life is what can make us happy. And just living each moment. I'm going to write down here too. Moment. Living in the moment is where we find our joy, just, you know, this whole experience that we're in, whatever it is. And finally, creation. Instead of, it's like realizing that we are the creators. And instead of having someone else and other systems controlling our mind to tell us what to create, we have control of our own mind. And we realize that we are sovereign beings. We get to control what we think, what we feel, and that when we get to that place and we know that we put out a higher vibration, a higher frequency, that we will create technologies where we are the technology and we won't need a middleman. And these are from a place of unity and love, and what I see as the development of a new human organism, not just individual humans, but humans working together to collectively create a brand new world. So I hope you found that interesting. I really, I got a lot out of these insights with this change in technology. And I realized that, you know, it's not about pushing back about these technologies that we currently have, because they're absolutely perfect. We created them, whether we realize it or not. It's actually about focusing on these new human technologies that we want to create, taking control of our own minds, taking control of our frequency, and taking these beautiful innate human intentions and turning them into something that works for everyone, for the greater good, and for this beautiful new Gaia that we're creating. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.